Sometimes the most unbelievable love stories begin with a contract. She needed money to save her brother's life. He needed a bride to close a billion-dollar business deal. It was supposed to be 7 days. No feelings, no real vows, no future. But on the 7th day, he whispered, "Let's never divorce." This is a story of desperation, deception, and a love neither of them expected. Sophia sat at the corner of the hospital hallway, her head buried in her hands, clutching a crumpled bill for her brother's emergency surgery. $47,000. Due in 3 days. No job, no insurance, no family left. Only her and Leo, her 8-year-old little brother, with failing kidneys and a will to live stronger than most grown men. As she blinked away her tears, a man's voice broke through the silence. "You dropped this," he said, handing her the bill she hadn't noticed slipping from her hands. She looked up, expensive suit, striking jawline, and a watch that could pay for a year of treatment. She whispered, "That's not mine anymore. Can't pay it." He stared at her for a moment, then sat beside her. "I'll pay it. But you have to do something for me." She flinched. "Not that," he added dryly. "I need a wife for 7 days." She laughed bitterly. "Is this a joke?" He didn't smile. "My name is Damien Calderon. I'm a billionaire. And my inheritance contract states that I must get married before I turn 30. He looked at his watch. "That's in 4 days. Sophia narrowed her eyes. "Why me?" He leaned in. "Because you don't want anything from me, and you're desperate enough to say yes." Sophia followed Damien into a sleek black car waiting at the hospital entrance. Everything about it screamed power. The driver in a suit, the scent of leather, the chill of the air conditioning. She felt like she didn't belong. And she didn't. Not in his world. They drove in silence until they reached a skyscraper with his name engraved in gold. Calderon Global. A woman in a tight bun and sharper heels handed Sophia a folder the moment she stepped out of the elevator. "Read carefully. If you agree, sign. He's in a meeting." Sophia sat down at a long marble table and opened the folder. The terms: marriage duration, 7 days. Payment upon signing. $25,000 payment after 7 days. $100,000 condition. Public appearances as wife. Of Damien Calderon, Clause 4. No emotional entanglement. No physical intimacy unless mutually agreed. Clause 7. Divorce finalized on day 8 with no claims or legal ties. She stared at the number. That money could pay for the surgery and keep Leo alive. But something felt off. Before she could overthink it, Damien walked in, tossing his tie on the table. "Read it?" She nodded. "Questions?" "Only one," she thought. "What's wrong with you?" But instead she asked, "Why only 7 days?" He poured himself a drink. "Because after that the inheritance is mine. And then—" He looked directly at her. "Let you go. No strings, no regrets." She picked up the pen with trembling fingers and signed. The wedding was held the next morning in a private garden behind a cathedral Damien's family had built. No guests, no music, no priest, just a city judge, a photographer, and 2 signatures away from a legal lie. Sophia stood in a white designer dress that wasn't hers, wearing heels a size too tight, and a diamond ring worth more than her entire childhood. She looked at Damien, emotionless, dressed in a crisp navy suit, eyes colder than winter glass. The judge cleared his throat. "Do you, Damien Calderon, take Sophia Mendez as your lawfully wedded wife for the duration and terms agreed upon?" He didn't blink. "I do." "And do you, Sophia Mendez?" She hesitated. For a second she looked back. No one was there, not her parents. Not Leo, just 2 lawyers and a photographer documenting a transaction disguised as matrimony. "I do." The papers were signed, the rings exchanged. And just like that, Sophia Mendez became Sophia Calderon. No kiss, no celebration, just Damien. Turning to her and saying, "We have a dinner with my board in 3 hours. Wear red." She wanted to scream, but she smiled instead. "Yes, darling." Sophia stepped out of the dressing room in a red silk gown that clung to her body like it was made for it. The stylist had transformed her. Soft waves in her hair, red lips like fire, a diamond necklace that made her look like she belonged. But inside, she felt like a walking lie. Damien glanced at her from the penthouse living room. "Good. You. Look, convincing." That was all the approval she got. The dinner was held at a luxury hotel rooftop. Wine glasses chimed, cameras flashed, and billionaires shook hands like politicians. Damien's board of directors was full of men who hadn't worked a day in their lives, and women who stared at Sophia like she was a knockoff handbag. Damien kept his hand on the small of her back, not affectionately, but strategically. They were selling an illusion. And the buyers were watching. One of the board members, a slick man named Gerald, leaned in during the meal. "Damien, where exactly did you meet your wife?" He smiled, sipping wine. "She saved my life." Sophia's eyes widened slightly. That wasn't in the script. "How romantic," someone said. Gerald didn't smile. "And what does she do?" Before Damien could speak, Sophia replied, "I'm learning to survive the wolves." She smiled sweetly. "So far, it's going well." The table went quiet. Then Damien chuckled. "See? That's why I married her." But when they got in the car, the smile vanished. "You're not supposed to improvise." Sophia looked out the window. "Neither were you." They returned to the penthouse past midnight. Damien loosened his tie, poured a glass of whiskey, and sat silently at the edge of the couch. Sophia kicked off her heels and limped to the kitchen, wincing with every step. "You're bleeding," he said without turning. She looked down. The straps had cut into her heel. "Guess I wasn't built for your world," she muttered. He stood up, walked to her, and knelt. Sophia froze. Damien gently lifted her foot and began wiping the blood with a towel, silent and strangely. "Human, you didn't have to lie," she whispered, "about me saving your life." He kept his eyes down. "I didn't lie," she stared at him. "You found me in a hospital hallway, not a burning building." He looked up now, his eyes darker. "You don't know what I was about to do before I saw you." Silence. "That hallway was the last stop before I gave up." Sophia's heart pounded. She sat slowly, her voice softer. "Why me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a fresh towel, stood up, and walked away. "Rest. Tomorrow we visit my mother." And just like that, the wall was rebuilt. But for a moment, she had seen the man behind it. The Calderon estate was nothing like the sleek penthouse. It was colder, older, built of stone and silence, the kind of place where secrets echoed through the hallways. Sophia stepped out of the car, heels crunching. On the gravel, heart pounding like thunder. Damien walked beside her like he was returning to war, not family. At the entrance stood Evelyn Calderon, graceful, elegant, and terrifying. She greeted Damien with a kiss on the cheek, then turned to Sophia, lips pressed in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So, this is the miracle wife." Sophia extended her hand politely. Evelyn looked at it for a moment before taking it, cold as ice. Over brunch, Evelyn examined Sophia like a puzzle missing its final piece. "What do your parents do?" Sophia swallowed. "They passed away when I was 16. "And your education?" "Scholarship, dropped out to care for my brother." Evelyn's smile tightened. "How inspiring," Damien interrupted. "We didn't come here to interrogate her." "Didn't we?" Evelyn replied, sipping tea. "You think I believe this charade? Damien, I know when you're lying, and you've never lied better than this." Sophia's fork froze mid-air. Evelyn turned to her. "Let me be clear, Sophia. I don't care where you're from. I only care what you're after. Because no one marries my son in 7 days, unless they're desperate or dangerous. Sophia met her gaze head on. I'm both. Damien coughed to hide a laugh. Evelyn blinked, and for the first time she looked intrigued. Back at the penthouse, the silence between them felt heavier than usual. Sophia stood by the window, arms folded, watching the city flicker like 1,000 unanswered questions. Damien poured himself another drink, his third tonight, and leaned against the bar. You handled my mother better than most men I know, he said, a hint of admiration sneaking into his voice. Sophia smiled faintly. I grew up dealing with social workers and landlords. She's just more expensive. He chuckled, genuinely this time. For a few quiet seconds there was no contract, no timer counting down. Just 2 people in a room too big for either of them. What was he like? Damien asked. Sophia turned to him, confused. Who? Your brother. Her face softened. Smart, brave, too kind for this world. I used to tell him bedtime stories about dragons and brave knights. She paused. Now the dragon is a hospital bill, and the knight is me, I guess. Damien stepped closer. You're not a knight. Her eyes narrowed. Thanks. He shook his head. You're something harder. You're someone who keeps standing when they're supposed to fall. The silence was different now. Charged. Bare. Sophia looked at him. Why do you keep looking at me like that? He hesitated. Because this was supposed to be fake, and in that moment, they both realized they were starting to feel something real. The rain came out of nowhere. One moment they were walking out of a charity gala arm in arm, smiling for cameras. The next, they were sprinting under streetlights, soaked to the skin, laughing like children. Damien opened the door to the car, both of them breathless. Water dripped from Sophia's curls, and her mascara ran just enough to make her human. He stared at her. What? She asked, teeth chattering. Nothing, he said, and looked away. But it wasn't nothing. Back at the penthouse, she peeled off her heels, still wet from the storm. He tossed her a towel. Come on, I'll show you something. She followed him into a room she hadn't seen before, a library. But not for show. Books lined every wall, pages marked, some open mid-thought. You read? He gave her a look. I'm rich, not illiterate. She laughed. He walked to a shelf and pulled a photo from behind the books. It was old, worn. This was my sister. Sophia's breath caught. She died when we were young, cancer. No one talks about her, ever. He looked at the photo as if it might speak. When I saw you in that hallway with your brother's bill, I remembered that feeling, that helplessness. Sophia's voice broke. Why didn't you tell me? He turned to her. Because I didn't. Want you to think I pitied you. I didn't. I admired you. And just like that, the wall cracked again. But before anything more could be said, his phone buzzed. He read the message. It's Gerald. He's investigating you. Why? She asked. He looked up, eyes dark. Because he knows this marriage isn't real. And if he finds proof, everything falls apart. The rain outside turned into thunder, and inside, the storm had just begun. The next morning, Sophia woke up to find the penthouse empty. No Damien, no breakfast, no note, just silence. But it didn't last long. A knock on the door. Sharp, rehearsed. She opened it to find Gerald, Damien's board member, standing with 2 lawyers and a knowing smile. Good morning, Mrs. Calderon. Mind if we talk? She tried to close the door. He stopped it with his foot. This won't take long. We both know you're not really married to Damien. But what you might not know is that if this marriage is exposed as fraudulent, he loses not just his inheritance, but everything. Her heart pounded. Why are you doing this? Gerald leaned in. Because I was supposed to be next in line. But then Damien went and found himself a miracle. He dropped a folder at her feet. Photos of her. Of Leo. Her old apartment. Hospital records. Her entire life tracked and documented. I give you two options, Sophia. 1. You disappear. Quietly. I'll make sure your brother's surgery is paid in full. No scandal, no damage. Or 2. You stay, and I leak everything. And Damien loses the company, the board, everything he's built. Tears burned her eyes. Not from fear, but fury. She didn't answer, just slammed the door in his face. That night, Damien returned, tired, suit undone. Why didn't you? Tell me he came? He asked, when she told him everything. Because I was trying to decide. Decide what? Whether I should protect your company or protect my heart. Damien walked to her. There's only one thing I need you to protect. She waited. He cupped her face. Us. And then he kissed her. Not because of a contract, not for show, but because he didn't want the 7 days to end. Day 7. The contract said they'd wake up, sign the divorce papers, and never speak again. But Sophia didn't sleep. She watched the sunrise. From the edge of the bed, her heart split between two impossible choices: walk away, or risk everything for something real. When Damien stirred awake, he looked at her, like she was the only thing in the world not made of glass and lies. It's time, she whispered. He nodded, stood, walked to the table. The documents were already there, neatly printed, the pen waiting. Are we really doing this? She asked. He didn't answer. He just looked at her. You were supposed to be temporary, he said, voice low. You were supposed to be my escape plan, but instead, you became my reason. He picked up the pen, paused. Unless you still want out. I promised no strings, Sophia. I don't break my promises. She took a shaky breath, walked up to the table, picked up the second pen, and slowly, deliberately, tore the contract in half. I want in. That afternoon they returned to the cathedral garden. This time, no contract, no deadlines, no lies, just vows. Damien held her hands and whispered, Let's never divorce. Sophia smiled through tears. Let's never have to.